guys, my name's Kevin. Today we're going to talk a little bit about using a low G string on your uke. I've had some questions about this and comments that I've seen, and some of you have been asking me, what is this whole thing about using a low G on my uke? So you heard a sound example of that there in the beginning of the video, and now I'm going to give you some reasons why you might want to use a low G on your uke, and maybe a few things that might deter you away from using the low G string. So let's talk about it, get started. So most of us who've played the uke have used this string setup here, which is using the high G string, then C, E, A. So the big difference that you'll hear between a high G string and a low G string is the low G string is an entire octave lower than the high G string. So take a listen closely here. The high G string sounds like this. And then let me show you how the low G string sounds in comparison. So that low G string is a full octave lower than the actual high G string. So it is going to cause a completely different sound to the uke, but using the same note, and I'll give you an example of that and show you how that works. So on the piano you have multiple octaves, so you have a bunch of different G notes you can play. So those are all G notes, but you can hear the difference in the register there. So when you play a high G string on a ukulele, that high G is actually this G note here on the piano. Now, when I go down and play the low G on my uke, I'm actually going to move all the way down here an octave to this G, which is now going to be the same as my low G string here. So I hope this gives you a little better visual representation of the octave and how you're moving from this higher G note down here to the lower G note when you put the low G string on your uke. So the first pro that I came up with for why you might want to put a low G string on your uke is playing through scales, playing melodies, or playing solos. So what I'm talking about is playing through something like this, which would be a B minor scale. So if you notice with the low G string, everything just fits right into place. I don't have to jump around in the octave. Now let me play that exact same scale with the high G string so you can hear what that sounds like in comparison. So you notice there, when I have the high G string on top here, it sounds a little different. And that's because this G string here, when it's high, is in the next octave up. So when I make this jump from the top string down to the C string, it just doesn't really sound like it flows right. And that's because now the intervals are different. So you can hear that going through the scale. And now again, with the low G string, listen to how much better this is going to sound. So another reason why you might want to have a low G string on your uke is for that warmer tone. So if you listen to some of these chords here when I play them, you're going to notice there's just a little bit more resonance, a little bit more warmth to the tone. And maybe that's something you're going for. Maybe the little chingy sound of a uke is a little too high for you. This is going to kind of mellow it out and bring out the warmth. So just kind of listen to how beautiful this sounds with this low resonance here. Playing a G chord with this open G string on top, you can hear. So if you're looking for a little more warmth warmth in the tone, maybe you're recording, or maybe you just want some variety, this is a really good way to do it just by adding the low G string. And for those of you who might take your uke out into the performance setting, which I've done, a couple hundred times now, I can tell you that I really like the warmth and the resonance created when I'm playing this amplified. So sometimes if you're in a situation where you're putting this through a speaker system or an amplifier, sometimes that high G string can really have an overtone that's just a little bit too much in the spectrum. So what I've done is went to a low G string many times and found that it just kind of cuts through the PA nice, sounds really warm, and that tone really gels well with other music. So if you're playing with a band and you're leading with a uke, I like that low register that's created by the low G string. It just seems to fit in really nicely with guitar, bass, drums, keyboards, something to experiment with and try if you're in the live performance setting. So now I'm going to give you a little comparison. We're going to talk about finger picking with a low G string. So I'll play you a little sound example here of me finger picking through a chord progression with the low G, and then I'll do it with a high G. And again, this might just be a personal preference for you. I like the sound of a low G, but you might prefer the sound of a high G. So I'll just give you a sound example back to back so you can hear what each of these sounds like and make your own determination whether you like the low or the high G. So I'm just going to play through a kind of basic C chord progression here with finger picking. So you hear that pedaling happening, getting that bass note in here every time. So now I'll play it with the high G string in comparison. So they both sound great, but it might just be a personal preference whether you want that kind of low resonating G string kind of pedaling the whole time, or you want that high G string. So again, it's up to you whether you like the low or the high or not. Sometimes on strumming and finger picking, just kind of where your ear lies, where you like to hear the sound register. Do you like it a little bit higher? Do you like it a little bit lower? Or maybe you have multiple ukes. And that's my next point here is if you want a little variety in your life, maybe you have a uke collection. Some of us are maybe building our uke collections. Some of us are looking at ukes online all the time and thinking we might want to add to our uke collection. Well, maybe one of those factors is having another uke. You could try putting a low G string on one of your ukes just to see if you like it, and if you don't, you can always gravitate back to that high G string and change out the low G string later. So if you have a uke collection, maybe that's just 2 or 3 ukes, you can use the low G on one, a high G on another, and kind of play back and forth and see what you like. It might be a situational thing where some situations lend themselves more to the high G, some lend themselves more to the low. So with all the cool things that come along with the low G string, there are a few shortcomings that I wanted to mention. One of those shortcomings is that the low G string will kind of go bad on you sooner than your other monofilament strings. And when I say go bad, what I mean is sometimes with these wound strings, where the string actually touches the fret, you'll notice that it'll start kind of grinding away at the string and cause little notches. And those notches are kind of a sign to you that it's time to change the string. Well, the only problem is your other strings could be in perfectly good condition, but now you have this one string on top that starts going bad and you have to change a single string. Now, there is one way of getting around this though. So changing that single string could be avoided if you use a set that has a monofilament low G string. So D'Addario makes a set of strings that has a low wound, not wound string, a low monofilament string called fluorocarbon that you would put on. In that case, that string doesn't go bad. You can keep the full set on for as long as you determine that you're going to change your strings, and then you won't have to deal with this whole single string change problem. In addition to that, something that, might not suit your ear as much is kind of this little scraping sound that you're going to hear as I move up and down the neck. So when I'm moving my finger across this wound string, you're going to hear this little kind of scratch. I'll kind of put it closer to the mic so you can hear it. So this is something guitar players have been encountering forever, and we try to avoid it by not really gliding across a string, but inevitably sometimes you do. So if you're recording something like that, you will hear this little scratching sound, which again you could get around if you use the fluorocarbon monofilament low G string. You could avoid that situation altogether. However, I will say there's a little difference in tone between the monofilament and the wound. You get a little bit more of a kind of guitar sound coming when you have a metal string that's very much like a guitar string versus the monofilament. But I do think they both sound good, and I think in the future when I have two ukes that have a fluorocarbon and a wound string, we'll do another comparison video showing you exactly what that sounds like there. So those are just a couple of the shortcomings that come along with a low G string, and again, they are avoidable. So while we're talking about this whole low G versus high G situation, I thought I'd mention something to you. You can grab these strings, the Kala Elite series made by Worth. Super high quality string, if not the highest quality string out there, made in Japan. The super cool thing about this set of strings is, and I found out, I was quite surprised, it comes with a high G and a low G. So if you want to try this, you can get this set of strings by itself, put the high G string on for a while. When you get sick of it, you could go to the low, or vice versa, start with the low G string, and when that low G string starts kind of fading away, you could put the high G string on, and then you have both. So you can check these out. I'll leave a link to these in the description below if you're looking to maybe try some new strings. You've heard what these sound like here in context, so you kind of got a good idea of how beautiful these Worth Kala strings really sound. Well, my name's Kevin. I thank you guys so much for watching this video today. I hope you learned something, and I hope this was helpful for you in making your decision on whether or not you want to try a low G or a high G string. With that being said, please leave your comments below. Let me know if you have any more questions about this. I'd love to help you make your decision. And let me know what your experience has been. Have you tried a low G string? Have you experienced any of these things that I was talking about in the video today? Let me know, let the community know, and hopefully we can help each other out here in making our decision on low G versus high G. Also want to mention, jump over to AllForUke.com. I have a full song library, lessons, series, practice tracks, and all kinds of cool stuff for you guys to use as learning resources. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good one.
This sunny day